Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along to the talk tonight. So this is Port Sunlight River Park, from historic dock to landfill to nature reserve. So this first picture here is from our annual Friends birthday party event. So we do this every year in August to celebrate the park opening back in 2014. So we have some local nature walks. We have people like Record coming along. We have local artisans and crafts. And we just invite the public to come and do as many things as they can at the park, really. We normally have about 1,000 or 2,000 people attending. And as I say, that's all organised by our Friends group, who are a group that support the park of volunteers. So yeah, it's a really nice day. And we weren't able to do one last year, unfortunately, but hopefully next year we will be able to do it again. So going back to 2011, funding was secured to redevelop the site with many partners. So Biffa had been managing the landfill site, which I'll talk about a bit more later. And then it was decided to, as part of planning, to restore the site into a park. But then obviously funding was needed to do that, and you needed people to oversee the park as well. So this is where the Land Trust stepped in. So they're a land management charity. I'll talk about them in a second. And they work with local partners and also funding sources, national funding sources as well. So people like Forestry Commission, Department for Business Innovation Skills, United Utilities and Unilever, who have close associations with the site as well. And SR, who have an oil pipeline that runs past the site. And there's a picture there of Alison McGovern. So she was quite instrumental in supporting the site development as well. Helping out in every way that she could as well. And she's also still the chair of the Friends group. So yeah, and then Autism together as well, who I'll talk about more after this, working with the Land Trust in partnership to actually manage the site. And the Land Trust also oversee the budget for the site. So they manage an annuity. So the funding that was gathered from all these different sources is now an annuity which pays for the ranger, which is myself, and also the management of the park in perpetuity. So it will be there as something for the community for many years to come. So just a bit about the Land Trust. So you may have heard about them before. They're a national charity. So what they do is they look after land for landowners. Sometimes these are ex-industrial sites. Sometimes they're just land that doesn't have public access at the moment. But they're all about uplift, really, in terms of making that site accessible to the public and, you know, making it better for everyone involved, really. So they're an independent charity providing long-term sustainable management of green open spaces on behalf of and in partnership with local communities. So their vision is to improve the quality of people's lives by creating, improving and maintaining sustainable, high-quality green spaces. So as I say, it's pretty much all outdoor spaces. Some of those have facilities as well, like us with our visitor centre, and some of them are just you know, just open parks. Increasingly as well, they're looking after land that's around housing developments, so you know, making them work for the residents and using the payments that are provided by the residents to provide a ranger for those sites and look after them. And they've got 5 main objectives. So number 1 is to enable social cohesion. So at River Park, for instance, that would be you know, the Friends group, our volunteers. We have corporate days, we have community events, walks, talks, just the community, the local community and visitors coming to the park as well, and trying to get them together and build around something and have ownership of the park as well. Creating economic uplifts, that's done in a few different ways. So one of them is just the park being there. So in the case of River Park, it was a landfill before, which may have possibly had a negative impact on house prices locally, but then now that it's transformed into a park, they've actually shown, the Land Trust has shown through a study that it has improved the house prices in the local area. And also it's more attractive for businesses in the local area as well. And also businesses that run on site, so things like dog walkers, Nordic walking, forest schools, all of those can make you know, make money from working on the site as well. Protecting and improving the environments, that's really strong for us. So increasingly, you know, putting new ponds in, planting trees, managing the grasslands, sowing grassland areas, wildlife monitoring and surveying, all of those things, you know, increasing biodiversity on those sites over time, and clearing out any contaminated land as well. improving health and well-being. So this is very important. Never been so important in the last year or so. So this is physical health, obviously, but then mental health as well. So people getting active around the park, doing fitness training, running, walking, being outside in the fresh air. The view from the top of River Park is good for your mental health, looking out over the River Mersey and looking back over the Wirral towards the Wells Hills. It's all brilliant, for mental health, and meeting up with people and socializing. All of those things are important. And providing educational activities as well. So we have an education officer, Ian, who's supported by the HLF. So he does walks and talks and tours for schools as well. We do things like history talks, wildlife talks, geography, all those sorts of things. So trying to maximise education for local people, for anyone that visits, and trying to increase people's skill sets. So the managing agent for the site is Autism Together. So how the Land Trust, what they do is, most of their sites, they'll work with a local managing partner, managing agent, who are another charity. So they're quite often land management charities like TCV or the Wildlife Trusts. But in this case, they thought it would be brilliant to work with a partner who's already on the Wirral and who are very into community-based activities. So Autism Together were an obvious group to work with. So Autism Together are a specialist provider of support to adults with autism. They mainly work on the Wirral in North Wales, but they're spreading out to other areas as well. I actually work for Autism Together, so I am employed by Autism Together as the ranger, and so is Ian, the education officer. So their key values are: we promote positive communication, everything we do is person-centred, we're an organisation that promotes learning, and we're very respectful. And the Autism Together was founded in 1968 by a group of parents who thought that possibly local services weren't doing really enough for their children with autism. So they set it up. It's still a charity to this day. And it supports people with independent living. It also supports people doing day activity services. So we're one of the day activity services for Autism Together. So we're part of community health and wellbeing. And so we have mainly young men who come to the site and do outdoor activities, helping us manage the park. So landscaping, things like doing woodwork, planting trees, maintaining the paths, doing lots of things the ranger would do as well. So it really helps having that team here. And I think it helps them with their personal confidence and learning new skills, particularly as well, and doing more with the local community as well. So it's great. It's a great partnership between the Land Trust and Autism Together at River Park. So if you haven't been to the park before, this is where it's located. So we're just on halfway up the Wirral, near Bebington and near New Ferry, and right next to Bromborough Pool as well. So we're right smack in the middle of the Mersey estuary there. So this is called the Mersey Narrows because it narrows before it goes up towards Birkenhead. Yep. And this is the park. So just looking a bit closer there, so you can see we're close to Port Sunlight and the A41, and that's how you access us off the New Ferry bypass just by the A41. So just north of us is actually a triple SI, so that's a site of special scientific interest. So that's New Ferry triple SI. So that's particularly designated for things like pintail and black-tailed godwits, so some of the wading birds. And we're also a special protection area, just all the way along the side of the river park is a special protection area, which is a European designation for birds. And we're also a Ramsar site, so that's an international wetland designation along the edge of the site as well. So a lot of protection status, and that's because the Mersey estuary is nationally and internationally important for the numbers of wading birds, particularly on passage in autumn and in spring. Because there's so much intertidal habitat there. The tidal range is very high. It's the second highest tidal range in the country after the River Severn, and that means there's lots of exposed sand and mud high to low tide, and then the wading birds can get in there and get all the shellfish and the mollusks that are exposed, and the mud is particularly rich in invertebrates. So it's really important all along the side. So the actual site itself isn't designated in any way. We'd probably like it to be something like a local wildlife site in future, and we're doing a lot of wildlife recording to work on that. But because the habitats next to it are protected, and you can't really build on the site because it's an ex-landfill. So it is going to be a park for hopefully forever. And just zooming in a bit further, so you've got Courthouse, you've got the river park there, which is 70 acres altogether, which is roughly 28 hectares. So it's reasonably big, and you've got the lake at the north end. And then you've got the Dibbonsdale Brook, which runs past just to the south of us, also called the River Dibbin, and that connects to another site called Courthouse Wood, which we also look after, which is about a 7 hectare woodland. So just a small woodland there that we look after, and that was it's a scheduled ancient monument actually as well. It had a moated site in it, and it had an old courthouse building. So we do archaeological digs there as well as part of the our heritage project we've got with HLF. And it's great because there's connectivity between those two with the River Dibbonsdale that flows out there, and that's freshwater river that runs up through there. And in the future, we're going to have a new path that goes just across the water, just at the bottom of River Park, and it follows along the Dibbin, and that's going to go into the wood. So there will be connectivity between the two, and we're just waiting for some development work to happen there before we can build that path. Yeah. So just a little bit about the history of the site. So going back to, on the left here, we've got a map from 1844 of Bromborough, which is from one of the tide maps. So you can see that actually Bromborough Pool, the reason it was called Bromborough Pool, which is right by River Park, is because it was actually an inlet. You can see the inlet there, and that's the River Dibbin running away down the side there. So it was basically, it was basically salt marsh and a big, a pool, an estuary that came in from the Mersey. It was very tidal, so a lot of the land either side of the Dibbin flooded quite regularly, and it was sort of marshy, brackish land around there. And the River Dibbin was a lot wider than it is today. So a few years later, actually big ships actually went up the Dibbin, and they went all the way up to Price's Candle Factory, and also the Port Sunlight Factory as well. So originally River Park was Brumbrough Dock, as it was, and that opened in the early 1930s. So this was the biggest private dock in the world at the time, and this was opened for Port Sunlight, basically for Port Sunlight Factory to get materials in there, mostly things like palm oil, but also wood and things like building materials from Norway as well. But particularly the animal fats and palm oil and oils to make the soap, and then also make candles over at Price's Candle Factory. Yeah, so that's there's a picture there of some of the big ships coming into the dock, and then the picture on the right is actually the ships going right up the Dibbin all the way up to Port Sunlight Factory. So originally the location of where the park is today is, if you see on the right-hand picture, you see in the top right-hand corner, that flat area there, that was basically completely created by dredging. So to keep the shipping lanes open to come into Bromborough Dock, which is at the right-hand side of the right-hand picture, they actually had to dredge out the shipping lanes for a number of years from the 1930s onwards. So that meant that there was silt building up over a number of years, until eventually there was 6 meters deep of silt there, and it was a big flat open silt pan. And that actually is what forms the base of River Park today. So all of that sort of width there, which is several hundred meters out into the Mersey, is actually completely reclaimed land that wasn't there before the 1930s. So we're, most of the River Park is jutting out into the River Mersey. And you can see that when you go around to the north end, you can see we're jutting right out into the Mersey. And that means that under the lake at the end of the park, there's actually 6 or 7 meters of silt underneath the bottom of the lake. And that's what the whole park's built on. So Bromborough Dock actually closed in 1987. So this is a picture of it being, so from the other side, facing back towards Port Sunlight. And on the right-hand side of the picture, that is where River Park is today. But it also, River Park extends out into half of where the dock is. So they filled, just after 1987, they filled in the whole dock. And then River Park extends along here, and then actually sort of down across here like that. And then the dock entrance is actually down by our building. So if you come to the park and go to the dock front today, you'll see that the actual original dock entrance is still there. And it's an interesting, well, I've been told by some of the ship owners from who went to the dock in the 60s and 70s that apparently the water in the dock was so polluted that actually some people just literally put their ship in there for 2 or 3 days, just so that all the barnacles and all of the things that were clinging to the bottom of their ships would actually die and then float off. So it must have been pretty horrendous, the water in there at that time. And in the 50s and 60s, this part of the Mersey was actually apparently the most polluted river in Europe, which is not a great accolade. Obviously, since then, a huge amount of work has been done to clean up the Mersey, and now it's one of the cleanest rivers in Europe. They stopped all the factories chucking everything into the water and all the pollution and all of the oil and all of the chemicals being chucked in. And they've also managed to stop all the sort of dumping of waste as well into the river. But at the time, that dock was really, really polluted in the 50s and 60s, and even before that as well. So there probably wasn't, I don't know how much wildlife there was actually in the river. Certainly it stopped the salmon coming up the river, and we didn't get the things like the porpoises and things that we do now because the river's so much cleaner. So this is prior to the landfill in 1990. So this is on the left here. This is them when they're filling in the dock. They're actually restoring the course of the Dibbin. So the Dibbin used to finish up here, but then they restored it all the way out to the Mersey again. So this is them doing the channel down here. And then this area here they're filling in is actually where River Park is today. And then from 1996, it became a major waste site for Wirral. And it was pretty, apparently for local residents, it wasn't that nice. I wasn't here at that time, but I heard that it was quite noisy and smelly, and it wasn't that popular, it being where it was, because there's only houses just a few hundred meters down the road. Apparently lots of flies in summer and things. But interestingly, on the top left picture, must have been very, very good for gulls. So I did actually look at the records to see if anyone was recording gulls at the time, and I think they missed the opportunity because it doesn't look like anyone was recording gulls, but there must have been a lot of gulls there at the time, as there are of any landfill. And all in all, there were 2.5 million tons of waste put into that landfill. So it was pretty big. And that's actually created, if you go to River Park today, you'll realize the whole site is a big hill. It's 37 meters tall, and that is a giant pile of rubbish. It's very well controlled in terms of the way that it was put there, but the whole park is on that, on all that refuse. In terms of making the landfill, they do it in a very controlled way. So they actually put in all these different cells. So there's 12 engineered cells which contain all the rubbish, and they have plastic linings and also lots of pipework to pump out the landfill gas. There's also this stuff, like when you have your compost bin, you get all the sludge and water at the bottom, called leachate. That actually comes out the site and is pumped out as well as all the biological waste breaks down. That actually is very acidic, so they actually have to mix it with caustic soda to make it neutral and then take it away. I'm not sure where they take it away to, but they still do that to this day. So basically they engineered all these cells and they put all the litter in. So that's how the landfill was made. And they still pump out the gas, and that actually goes into the national grid today. So it actually creates electricity for thousands of local homes. So that's actually a good waste product of the landfill. And then finally, when the landfill was finished, on the left-hand picture there, they capped it over with 1 meter deep of soil, at least 1 meter deep of soil. I say soil, I think it was a lot of builders' waste as well, or whatever they could find, because there's lots of concrete in it and lots of bits of metal sticking out and things like that. And we even found things like a whole lamppost up there and stuff. So, but the benefit of that is actually the soil that was used is very poor in fertility. So that poor soil is actually really good for the wildflowers that are up on the summit because it's not very fertile. With the site now, we're trying to battle fertility because the site's getting more and more fertile over time as things rot down and as nitrogen comes out of the air and things, it is getting more fertile. So we're trying to battle that a bit to keep the wildflowers on the summit. On the right-hand picture, that's what it looked like just after the soil had been spread. And this is what it looks like around the time that the park was open. So 2012, 2014, Gillespie's and the Land Trust did all the major works to actually make it into the park it is today. So they put in 5 kilometers of pathways. There's a few different routes around the park and lots of over 10,000 trees and shrubs as well of all different native species. There's some non-native trees as well, like cherries and Italian alder and things, but mostly they're native trees, and most of the trees you'd find in the northwest are here. Drainage ditches all over the place because you've got to control the water runoff. They don't want any big landslides going into the River Mersey or destabilising the site. There's also a really big oil pipeline that runs along the front edge by the Mersey, so they don't want the site destabilising and actually doing anything to the oil pipeline. Wildflower seeds were put all over the summit, and there was also a lot of seed that obviously came in with the topsoil, because we have a lot of things like Michaelmas daisy. You find all sorts of things, the garden escapees all over the site as well. So it's a big mix. And there's a new access from around by the lake to Shorefields Nature Park as well, and new signage and interpretation and sculptures as well. This is a map of the park we have by the entrance. So you've got the summit, which is the top of the hill, our building, which is the Heritage Centre, where you quite often see the fox. You've got all the way along, we call this path Mersey View, which goes along the river, the Mersey estuary, and then you've got Shorefields. You've got New Ferry up here, and Shorefields up to the north end. You've got the Wildlife Lake, and then woodland all along this side, and scrub and sort of bushes and hedgerow plants as well, and then a small car park on Dock Road North. So it's a lot of varied habitats, and I think that's why the site is quite biodiverse actually. For a new site, it's only been open for 7 years, but because you've got lots of different habitats all in quite close proximity to each other, you've got these kind of areas where the different habitats meet. So you've got the estuary, the Mersey estuary, but then right next to it you've got a reed bed, and you've got woodland, and you've got the species rich, the flower rich grassland as well. So in those areas between the different habitats, you find those are really where you find maybe more insects or more birds. There's more niches for things to actually make a living as well. And you've also got the River Dibbin that runs past, so you've got fresh water as well. So the lake and reed bed, which is up on the north end of the site, we've just got the one lake. It's rain fed, completely rain fed. There's no groundwater there because it's on all the silt you see that was put there. It's well above the high tide mark for the Mersey as well, and completely separate from the Mersey. And the reed bed's really important for lots of birds like reed warbler, reed bunting, sedge warbler, Chetty's warblers. We've got herons in there, little grebe, loads of birds around there as well. And then you've got the sandbanks and mussel beds. So all the way down the north side of the Mersey, you've got a low tide. You've got all these sandbanks exposed and mussels along there as well. So the birds really like probing in the sand for the shellfish and for the marine worms. And although the sand is not quite as popular as the mud, I'll talk about the mud a little bit in a minute. But the sand is important for the waders and the gulls, but I think that the mud does have more invertebrates in it. You've got woodland as well. It's young woodland, so we put up lots of bird boxes and bat boxes because there's not many cavities for them to use at the moment. So, but the woodland will mature. I'm not sure how most of the woodlands planted on areas with slightly deeper soil than a metre, so it doesn't actually reach through down into the actual landfill material underneath the rubbish that was underneath. We've got species-rich grassland, so most of the whole top of the hill is wildflower-rich grassland, and we manage that like a meadow. So I'll talk about the management a bit more in a minute. Up at New Ferry shoreline, that's the bit that's the site of special scientific interest, and that's particularly for numbers of pintail and also numbers of black-tailed godwit that are there in the winter and passing through on migration. There you get lots of salt marsh. It's sort of like a pioneer salt marsh, and you get lots of seeds from the salt marsh plants that float around, and you get lots of teal there, and then you get the waders like curlew. We were really pleased to see there was some Wimbrel there the other morning, which are just like a curlew with the eye stripe, but you only see them a couple of times a year, so that was lovely. And then you've also got the River Dibbin, which runs past, and that connects to other sites like Dibbinsdale as well, and that goes under the A41. And you see things like the heron down there, the kingfisher. We have grey wagtail breeding on there as well, so that's important. Yeah. I'll just talk a little bit about invertebrate recording on the site. So a lot of these have been from, it's basically been quite a lot of ad hoc recording over the years. So we've had a few bioblitzes, and that's when we've generally done moth trapping in the past. I think the site is quite good for moths. Like whenever we've done it, we have a huge number and variety. Nothing particularly rare, but we certainly get a good number of moths there. And I think that's because there's so many different types of plant and tree on the site. That means there's lots of different food plants for different moths. and also Danefly moths and butterflies as well. The site we're doing this time for the first time we're going to do a butterfly, bee, and hoverfly surveys this year once a month on a standard transect route to try and get a baseline for all the different types of bee we get. So we get lots of bumblebees, solitary bees. I think it's quite a good site for bees, and hopefully we're going to get a good species list by the end of the year. There's a few things we haven't recorded so well, so things like flies, diptera, but we'll hopefully can get more recorders there to do that, and spiders as well. I think the site might be quite good for spiders, but we've only had a few records before, and we probably need an expert to come and do some more surveys of that. And just in the middle there, you can see the middle top there, you can see that's us. That's Jeff Clark and Claire Gower doing some moth trapping at one of our buyer blitzes with a big lamp. And we're actually hoping to do some more moth trapping on site more regularly to see what we've got. And the Knotweed Trust have given us a small grant to get a portable light trap that we're going to put out quite regularly so that we get more, we can check more moth records throughout the years. It's actually quite interesting. I was looking at the previous records for the site, and back in the 1920s, somebody did some really comprehensive moth trapping at Bromborough Pool, which is just next to River Park. And it's a really good species list. So I'd quite like to compare what we get now with what they actually got 100 years ago. I'm suspecting there was more back then, I'm suspecting, because moths have declined quite a lot. And obviously a lot of the rarer ones have disappeared from the area, but it would be quite interesting to do that. So recently we did a Invertebrate project recording day at the site. And these are just some of the things we found from the site. So one of the things we found, which was quite interesting, was southern green shield bug. So that's actually, I think it's one of the only records, well, it's the only record for the Wirral so far of that species. And this one, so that's the top left, sorry, top left. So that one's actually a nymph. Oh, sorry, come back. That one's actually a nymph, so it's not the full adult. And the actual adult of that species looks just like a normal green shield bug, if you've seen one of those before. So they're shield shaped and quite green. And it's a species of recording it's expanding northwards as well, and it's only been in the country about 13 years, I think. Clive Washington did a really good job of looking for beetles for us, and I think he found over 104 different types of beetles in one day, which I thought was very good going. There were 6 of us in a day. We got about 200 different types of invertebrate, and he got, well, half of the records, so that's quite impressive. And this little weevil here was found growing in the ivy near the containers by the car park. So, and it's one of the only bits of ivy we have on site. So obviously this little thing has found a home there, and it's it's not been found anywhere else on the Wirral yet as well. This is the spider here is the 4-spotted orb weaver spider. So it's quite a common species. You might find them in your garden actually, but when we did this survey in September, they were absolutely everywhere. There were loads of them, and they really benefit from the long grass. So they make their big webs between the tall stems, the long grasses. Apparently they've got the weight record for the heaviest UK spider, I've read somewhere, but yeah, so they're quite big. And they like the gorse as well, making the webs around there. And then Leander Dixon found this ichneumon, which is down here in the bottom right. We just thought it looked pretty interesting. It's it's only got very few records for the area, but I think that's because they're under recorded. And this particular one actually parasitizes the caterpillars of butterflies. Yeah, so we just thought we'd show sort of a range of the things we found. And we found a lot of true bugs as well, which on the site as well. So it was a really good site for that. I think there's so many young trees and bushes and a wide range of species of tree and hedgerow species. So these are just on that recording day, these are 2 biodiversity hotspots. So one of them was right in front of our building. We left last year, I didn't do as much cutting around the park, and we left this long area in front of our building, which had some wildflower seed in it. And it all sort of nearly died back by September, but we found loads of stuff. When we were sweep netting through there, we found loads of different types of ladybird and shield bug. And that's where we found the southern green shield bug as well. So it just shows any small patch of native plants can be really important for invertebrates and places you don't need to expect. And then Clive rooted around in this pile of wood chippings, and because it had been sitting there a while, it had fungi growing in it, like mycelium growing in there, and that's the food source for a lot of the little tiny beetles. So he found tons of little beetles in there. So that's a lesson for me to always leave a wood pile somewhere, somewhere on the site, just leave it alone for lots of little critters to live in there. And that might be quite a good thing for people doing their gardens as well. If you've got any wood chip, just leave a pile of it around somewhere, because it's going to be really valuable habitat for little invertebrates. Okay, so one second. So bird recording. So we've recorded about 127 different species of bird on the site so far, and that's not just in the park, but that's seen from the park as well. So some of that will be just in the Mersey shoreline and just on New Ferry as well. But it's pretty good going. That's been recorded in the last 7 years. I think there's more records if you go back further in the past. So it's great. Every time I get in the morning, I can hear the greenfinches singing straight away. The goldfinches everywhere. We get loads of song thrushes, blackbirds, skylarks as well. The site is good for skylarks. So if you want to see a skylark singing, come to the summit in summer, and you'll see the male skylarks doing their display flights and singing on the summit. We've actually made a special area for them on the summit, on the top of the hill, which has been fenced off so that they can nest on the ground in peace without any dogs sort of running over the nests or anything like that. And just here, I've done a list of all the breeding birds for River Park. So these are the numbers of breeding pairs. So it's not bad going for considering it's just 70 acres. And I've color coded them. So the ones in red are the ones that are on the, so this is the birds of conservation concern list. You've got red, which is highest concern, amber growing concern, and green least concern. So these are birds where the numbers nationally or the range is declining. So you can see that for skylark, song thrush, linnet, house sparrow, and grey wagtail, we've got all those breeding here, and they're red on the list of UK conservation concern. And you can see there's some fantastic numbers here, like wren, we get sort of 20 to 40 pairs breeding on the site. Blackbirds, 12, 15 sets breeding on the site as well. So yeah, and things like lesser whitethroat, which are really nice as well. Yeah, so it's a great site for birds, and you're going to see a great selection of birds all through the year. These are just some of the key areas for birds on the site. So the shoreline all the way down the whole of the Mersey you're going to see loads of different waders like red shank, oyster catchers, shell ducks, loads of different types of gulls. 7 or 8 types of gull regularly occur here. Yeah, you get the down here on the right hand side, you get the pintail in winter as well. So they're feeding on the seeds around the salt marsh. And top left here, these are black-tailed godwits. So these are the waders that are one of the reasons why it's been the site next to us has been designated along the shoreline. So you get big numbers of those on passage in autumn and winter. So these are actually in summer plumage now, and they're going to be heading off to Iceland to breed for the summer. This is a picture of one of the creeks down in the New Ferry shore with all the teal there dabbling away. Yeah, so you get really big groups of things like dunlin as well, ringed plover, loads of stuff. So it's really good for waders. And then the lake and reed bed as well are important for birds. So if you get the specialists like reed bunting, we've got swans down there. I think they've just started nesting for this year, so they normally raise some chicks. And then black-tailed godwits as well. And sometimes you'll see hundreds of black-tailed godwits or a redshank just sitting on the edge of the lake because they get pushed up by the tide and they come in here to roost on the lake. It's an important place for gulls as well to actually, they wash all their feathers up there as well. And things like reed warblers, sedge warblers as well are all around the lake. And you get the heron in there sometimes as well. We don't think there's any fish in the lake because it sometimes dries up. So I'll talk about that in the habitat management section. So just a little aside here about wildlife recording. So when I was looking at all the wildlife records for the river park, obviously before it was River Park, it was Brumbrough Dock originally. And I found some records from World War II. So I thought that was quite interesting because I wasn't sure that how many people were actually doing bird watching in this area in World War II. I thought everyone else had more on their mind, but obviously there were some people. So there's this chap called Arnold Boyd, and he recorded birds actually here at Bromborough Dock. And it specifically says it was Bromborough Dock, so we know it was exactly where the river park is between 1939 and 1941. And it was quite interesting because he recorded knots and dunlin, which are some of you may know are quite small waders, in numbers of 4,000 to 5,000 of each of those. And that is a lot more than we get now. I mean, particularly Dunlin, we get it up to a few hundred on New Ferry shoreline every year, but we certainly don't get thousands anymore. So there was obviously, it was obviously a little bit different back then. And I'm not sure what the difference is, but they were getting a lot more of those birds back then. We only get like handfuls here now, sort of under 100 a time, and you had thousands back then. And I'm not sure where he was recording, whether he was recording actually right on the dock front when the tide was down, or whether he was over at New Ferry shoreline. We also had some interesting records like Kittiwake, which haven't been recorded here since 1940. So quite often they're only recorded a few times on the Wirral each year, and that's when they've been pushed in by really bad storms. So it kind of makes you think that in October, around that time of year in 1940, there were obviously some bad storms that pushed those in here. There were also some records of curlew sandpiper, which is quite a rare wader for the Northwest now. And again, those were in the autumn of 1940, 1941. And I think those are the only records of that species. We haven't had any since that time. And again, they are actually sometimes pushed off course when they're on migration. So something must have happened back then with the weather to push them off course. We do get a few records around the Wirral, but not so many since then. And back at that time, there were regularly 600 to 800 redshank there, which is a little bit more than we get. We have to get up to about 500 today, but not as many as back then. So if anyone has any thoughts, you might be able to tell me in the question section whether you know why there were so many more waders up around the dock and around this area back then than compared to now. That would be really interesting. And yeah, most of the rest of the bird species are actually still recorded here today, as they were back in 1930s, 1940s. So that's quite good news anyway. If the numbers are lower, but it's yeah. Okay, so plant recording. So today we've had more than 250 plant species recorded on the site. So it is a pretty good site for plants. You get a huge variety. So these are just some of the pictures of some of the areas. The top left one actually was an area that we normally mowed in the past, and we actually left for No Mow May. You might have heard about that. It's a campaign run by Plant Life where they're asking people to leave a little bit of their garden unmown for the whole of May, even longer if possible, just to see what flowers and what things spring up in those areas. And obviously this area is now really valuable for a lot of pollen. You know, it's got a lot of white clover in there and things, but you've got loads of other stuff in there, loads of other different clovers and hawkweeds and things like that. So yeah, so that was really nice. And then a lot of the summit is quite it's quite alkaline, so the chalk field things that like chalky soils do quite well. So oxeye daisies, yeah, Viper's bugloss, things like that as well. And then higher up on the site, we have lots of things like wild carrots, as I say, like the hawkweeds, lots of like ladies' bedstraw and meadow indicator species. We get lots of teasel as well. So in winter, the flocks of finches absolutely love all the seeds on the teasel. In fact, the seeds for all the plants we leave. Yeah, it's really great. So as I say, more than 250 plant species recorded. A lot of that was down to Wirral Wildlife Group doing regular recording, and Hillary Ash in particular. It's an interesting mix at site of native and non-native species. So we have a lot of native wild plants, but a lot of garden escapees as well, like Spanish bluebells, and as I say, like things like Michaelmas daisy. You know, there's things all over the place that are garden escapees, but a lot of the time we just leave those because they're not doing any harm unless they're spreading. As I say, lots of seed probably came from the topsoil, so that's probably why we've got such a diverse mix of things. Some native species, unfortunately, do need to be controlled. So we do have a little, like things like Canadian goldenrod have come in the site, and we're trying to control that. And there's a bit too much buddleia. There is a lot of buddleia in some areas, and that's great for the butterflies and the pollinators, but it does spread like wildfire, so we have to control that. And we also have a lot of sea buckthorn, which a big forest of sea buckthorn near the lake, which we're gonna cut some of that down as well. We've got lots of records, I say, of higher plants, but we don't have many records of mosses and lichens, and I think that's because it's quite a new site. So I think with time we'll get more mosses and lichens on site, and then we can record those. So looking at other plant records, so as I say, Wirral Wildlife have done comprehensive surveys every 2 to 3 years since the park opened. So that really gives us an idea of what we've got and what areas we need to manage. And this has directly led to management recommendations. So, you know, which areas do we need to mow this year? Which areas do we need to seed more? different plants into. We might put plug planting as well. In the past, they've told us things like that early in the year, we don't have as much food as we could have for pollinators. So we've tried to plant more things like primroses and so other spring sources, cowslips as well. And the willows are really important for bumblebees in the spring as well. So we're trying to plug that food gap for pollinators in the spring. And it's interesting from the species list, if you look at the plant list, you can see that the site is getting more fertile over time. So things that like really bare soil, pioneer plants, they're losing out to things that are a bit more, the light richer soil and become a bit more competitive. So I'm a bit concerned that there's getting a bit too much grass coming in on the summit, on the top of the hill, and we're losing the diversity of flowers. So we're going to do things like putting more yellow rattle and things in there that will actually knock back the grass a bit as well. And there's definitely less bare ground than there used to be. Some plants like common century, the light bare ground, things like weld, we're seeing less of those plants because there's less bare ground. So mammal recording, so there's been, again, lots of ad hoc records. We've not done anything that sort of standardized, but Anne, the previous ranger, did quite a few bat surveys and bat walks. We know we get, on the top left here, we've got Noctual Bats. That was taken under license at another site, that picture. But if you come in the summer at dusk, you see noctuals flying high over the hill, which is absolutely incredible to watch them darting after big moths and beetles and things. And we think because we've only used quite simple bat detectors, we've recorded, I think, 5 species of bats, and we think there's probably more, but we need to use a better bat detector or leave the bat detector out there. So I might have to borrow a better detector of someone. We think we've got common and soprano pipistrelle, noctual, and Dor Bensons at least. So that's 4. So, and then rabbits, we used to have lots on site. There seems to be less now. I'm not sure why that is. The sites, because we've got so much long grass, and the whole hill is full of small mammal burrows. So we've got loads of wood mice. Whenever we do mammal trapping, we get loads of wood mice and field voles. And the field voles are really important for things like the kestrel that's hunting here all the time. And sometimes we get owls coming over. So, there's full of stuff. And we need to do a bit more small mammal recording. So I'm not sure if we have any shrews. So we'll have to do some more recording on that. The lovely picture of the fox by Alan Leach. So there's foxes regularly seen on the site. They're normally around every day. Some of them are quite tame and will come quite near our building. So it's nice to see those. I'm hoping we're going to put out some camera traps in the next couple of years, because I know we've got records of stoats and things. So I'd like to see more. Whether we've got weasels as well, I don't know. So it would be good to put more records out. And then obviously there's the marine mammals as well. So when you're at River Park, if you look out into the Mersey, you might see seals. You might see harbour porpoise as well, which look like small dolphins. So things like that in the Mersey, just showing how much cleaner and healthier the ecosystem is in the Mersey now. So habitat management, it's quite a complex site for managing. So this is just a shot here of the park, so you can see the hill, and that's the lake down that end. So the reed bed, we're trying to cut sections of that on a 5 to 10 year rotation, so cutting 10 to 20% every year. And that just basically means there will be new reed growing through, and that can help certain invertebrates. It can also help birds that are nesting in there as well, just to have more different heights and different ages of reed in there as well. And we're also concerned because the water level sometimes gets low in the summer, and sometimes the lake completely dries out. We're worried that the reeds are going to completely grow over the whole thing, and then you won't have any open water, and that will be a problem as well. We want to keep the open water, so cutting back the reed helps prevent that as well. We can't do much about the lake drying up, because the only way the lake fills up is from the runoff from the rest of the site, which is rainwater basically, and there's no way to pump water up from the Mersey or anything like that. So we have thought about digging it out, dredging it out deeper, but I've been told that a lot of the silt that's in there possibly might be contaminated with heavy metals and things like that because originally it was taken out of the Mersey when it was very polluted. So we're not sure how contaminated and whether we want to actually disturb the silt at the bottom. It doesn't seem to hurt the birds that live there in any way. We still get chicks and everything. So but it's a bit of a challenge to manage the lake. And as I said before, we've got a big forest of sea buckthorn here. So sea buckthorn produces lots of berries, which apparently make lovely jam. But the problem is it's very thorny and it spreads on site. Like every year we found lots of seedlings all across the site, and it can completely dominate a site in a few years if you don't cut it back. So we're gradually managing the sea buckthorn. We're intending to diversify the ground flora in the woodland as well. So we're going to try and, a lot of this is young woodland, it's quite densely planted, and there's not much ground flora in there. So there's not many bluebells or celandines or anything like that. So we're going to hopefully seed and plug plant things like, as I say, bluebells, celandines, hedge woundwort, red campion, things like that to make it a bit more diverse in the woodland. And we're putting up a lot of bird and bat boxes as well. And then on the summit, we're going to, we regularly cut back big areas. It's a bit of a problem to do because we have to strim it all by hand. We can't use a mower. It's a big area. It's several hectares, and we have to strim it and then collect it by hand because the ground is so full of rocks and bricks and bent things. If we used a mower, it would just break the mower straight away. So we have to do that all by hand, and we're trying to do that on like a 3 to 5 year rotation. Basically, what that does is we're cutting and collecting the grass, and then we rake it off and we take it elsewhere. And that's basically keeping the fertility levels lower. And that means that the wildflowers do better and the grass doesn't quite dominate as much. We're also hoping to add in some yellow rattle seed in there. So we're going to make some bare patches and put in yellow rattle. And yellow rattle is a hemiparasite of grasses. So it's a plant that's an annual that taps into the roots of the grasses and actually weakens the grasses. So it helps the wildflowers. We've got quite a lot of buddleia we need to get rid of. So it's a really good for the bees and the butterflies, but we've got too much of it and it's spreading, and we don't want it to, outcompete the other plants we've got on site. And then we're trying to, down by our little building here, down by the Heritage Centre in the dock front, we're going to build a sort of bee pollinator friendly garden. So going to put in some, bee and bug hotels, and planting specifically for pollinators, and things like logs for the kids who visit to roll over and do bug hunts and things like that as well. And also some interpretation down there about all the different invertebrates we have on site. So hopefully the bee survey we're doing this year will give us a good list of bees that we can then put on a sign so people know all the different bees on site. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There is a lot more. We have to maintain all the pathways as well by cutting back and resurfacing. A lot of those get eroded in heavy rain and things as well. And we're managing, other plant species on site as well. I said back at the beginning, we have another site which is just down the road. It's just near the A41. If anyone knows where the village hotel is on the A41 in Bromborough, it's just around there actually. And this is a 7-acre little woodland called Courthouse Wood. So this is, whereas on River Park all the woodland is very newly planted, this woodland's been here for quite some time. So some of the trees are up to 100 years old. And as you can see, the ground flora in there is a lot better. So we've got wild garlic in there blooming at the moment. You've got lots of nice ferns and the bluebells, celandines. And we've just put in some nice new pathways in there as well, so people can walk around in there. And we've been doing some archaeological digs to do with the courthouse building that was there. So hopefully there'll be some new signage there to tell people about the archaeology work that's been going on. We do other talks about the history of the park. So if you want to know more about the history of Courthouse and the River Park, we, book onto one of our talks about the history. There's also a big avenue of trees in there that used to lead to the old courthouse building as well. And there's a few management issues in Courthouse Wood that we're dealing with at the moment. So one is Japanese knotweed, so on the right here. So there used to be a lot more of it, but we're still controlling it in there at the moment by stem injecting it with pesticides to control that, because it can get out of control. And also there's this ivy everywhere. So ivy is normally good because it's great for birds nesting in it. It's great for invertebrates. But this particular ivy is a cultivar of ivy, and it's non-native. It's a garden escapee. And what it's done is it's covering all the ground. It's covering all the ground everywhere. And it's also climbing up all the trees. And this means that in some areas of the wood, there's no ground flora at all. So there's no chance of any bluebells coming through this or any celandines. So we're going to actually pull some of this by hand and stream it back and see if we can get some of these areas back. But again, Courthouse Wood has got a good variety of wildflowers as well. And we're also making a little wood meadow in there by streaming an area back and then planting new seeds and plug planting in there. So we couldn't do a lot of the work, as I said. It's just myself and Ian who are the actual staff at the park. So we're very lucky to have a lot of really dedicated volunteers who help with a lot of the management work. And also the group from Autism Together. As I say, I work for Autism Together, and we have mainly young men from who have autism who come to do day activities here, and most of that is landscaping, gardening. So doing things here like, you know, helping you know, maintain the views for areas, cutting things back, maintaining the paths, you know, taking stuff out of the drainage areas. They do things like planting trees, you know, making steps, all those kind of things. And then the volunteers as well really help with like the meadow management and cutting the meadow. Again, watering plants, planting trees. They've helped with survey work and events as well. So we're really lucky to have all these people that come. And for the autism group, it's a great chance for them to engage with the public and also to learn new skills really, and to gain confidence and do something that's really good exercise and good for their well-being as well. And we also do a lot of environmental education at the site, which I talked a little bit about earlier. So we have regular school visits from local schools. Some of them walk here, some of them come by bus. We do tours. So a lot, that's, you know, we tell them about the wildlife and how we run the park, but also about recycling and about landfills and about you know, climate change as well. So all of those things. It's a great park because you can walk them around and tell them, you know, how the methane gas makes energy from, and how, and you know, why we still bury rubbish, and you know, what rubbish we burn as well. But also, you know, that you can restore places that, you know, a lot of the kids are really impressed that you can restore, you know, a park like this from something that is you know, originally been a landfill and has been you know, a big problem in the area. And then also we have in the top right, this was an Eco Schools Festival. So these were the Wirral, on the Wirral, a lot of the schools have an Eco Schools committee, you know, who look after all the, you know, all the environmental stuff in their school, and they came to do activities with us for a day. So we had loads of different stands. Cheshire Wildlife Trust came, you know, archaeology groups came. We had people who used to work on the park and drive ships along the Mersey, all sorts of people. So that was great. We do like bug hunting and with the kids, and I took some of these invertebrates out to a group in a local library. So that was quite fun, and showed the kids all the different harvestmen and shield bugs and different insects and invertebrates, slugs and snails, all sorts. We get kids doing artwork here. So, you know, drawing pictures of the amazing views from the summit. It's one of the best views of, if you haven't been to the top of River Park, it's one of the best views of the Liverpool, you know, in the Liverpool docks and the Liver building and the Liverpool dock front as well. And yeah, there's another school group coming here as well, and we do bird watching and things with them as well. And yeah, so this slide is all a bit about how you guys can help, you know. So obviously, because we're partnering with Record on this, start recording. So, you know, we'd really love as many people as possible to record whatever they can see at River Park. And it, you know, it's all about learning things and telling us what you've seen. I mean, we can't be everywhere, so a lot of the times people have told me interesting sightings of things that I never would have known were there, and the members of the public have just shown me stuff on their phone. I mean, I had two ladies last year who came and showed me a picture of a hummingbird hawk moth, which I didn't even know was on River Park, and there's never been a record of one here before. And these two ladies, you know, they were clearly really liked wildlife, but were really only just getting into it. They only knew, you know, they only just started looking at the birds in their garden, and they come out and they managed to film a hummingbird hawk moth, which I thought was amazing. And they showed it to me, and then we got the record in. So, you know, and you can send your records directly to Record as well using their Swift system, or you can use things like iRecord or iNaturalist. Also, this is good timing because between the 30th of April and the 3rd of May, there's the UK City Nature Challenge for Merseyside. So I'd really love you to take part with that. So you can go to this project, City Nature Challenge, Liverpool City Region. You can look that up. And all you need to do is register for iNaturalist. And you can take photos of things you've seen around the park. Take photos of things you've seen around the park. And then you can submit your photos there. And then it adds all of your records. So to all of the other sites in the Mersey City Region. So that's on the Wirral and around Liverpool. and that's a competition with all the different cities around the world. I think we did really well in the last one 2 years ago. So yeah, so get involved with that. And also send your records to Record, of course, or send or tell me about them. Send your records there as well. You can also volunteer with us. We're not taking volunteers just this moment because of COVID restrictions, but in May and June, I think we'll be taking new volunteers. So if you want to volunteer with us, come and ask me about it. You can contact us on our website, or you can come to the park itself and ask me. We do lots of walks and events throughout the year, so come to one of those. Or you can even join our friends group. So they're a group of local people who support the park and fundraise for the park. And they've actually just recently made a really good history trail for the park, all about the landfill and all about all of those years around the landfill, and listening to people's stories about the landfill and how it's changed. So if you go onto the Friends of Port Sunlight River Park website, you can find all that stuff too. And that's it. So thank you very much for listening. I just want to say special thanks to all the recorders who provided us with wildlife records. We couldn't do it without you. And thank you for use of photos from the various photographers. Most of the best photos weren't mine. And also thank you to all the lottery players and the Heritage Fund for paying for our education officer post and for also refurbishing our building.